There is a day you celebrate, you relax, you scroll through your phone, you even spend money without thinking twice. But in the realm where I used to operate, that same day was marked not for rest, not for peace, not even for joy. It was a harvest day, a day when destinies were touched, when finances were adjusted, when invisible decisions were enforced over people who had no idea they were being monitored. What shocks me is not that this day exists, but that millions of believers walk into it every single week, completely unguarded. No prayer focus, no spiritual awareness, no resistance, just routine. And that is what made our work easy. You see, in the kingdom I served, we didn't attack randomly. No, everything was calculated. Days were assigned, people were tagged, patterns were studied, and financial destiny was one of the easiest targets. Not because money is powerful, but because people are careless with timing. There is a day many of you think is ordinary, but in the spirit realm, that day is like an open gate. And if you enter it wrongly, you can spend the rest of the week struggling for what should have come easily. I have seen people receive opportunities only for it to disappear within 24 hours. I have seen contracts almost signed, then suddenly cancelled. I have seen people work hard all week, but somehow money refuses to stay. It comes and goes like something is leaking. Let me say something carefully. There were names, real people we used to monitor, not because they were weak, but because they were consistent in the wrong way. Yes, consistent. They always behaved the same way on that particular day. They woke up late, ignored spiritual alignment, focused only on physical activities. And by the time they realized something was wrong, the damage had already been done. And the worst part, they would pray later in the week, but they were praying after decisions had already been made against them. That is how systems work in the dark world. Not everything is attacked instantly. Some things are scheduled. I didn't always understand this. At the beginning, I thought we were just doing rituals, just following instructions, just obeying higher authorities. But as I rose, as I was trusted with deeper assignments, I began to see patterns. I began to understand structure. I began to see that nothing we did was random. My name is not important yet because what I did is more important than who I was. But I will tell you this, I was not an ordinary member. I handled financial manipulations, assignments that affected businesses, salaries, contracts, opportunities, and long-term prosperity. And the shocking truth is this. Many of our operations did not require direct contact with our targets. We didn't need to meet you. We didn't need your picture sometimes. All we needed was your pattern. There was one assignment that changed everything for me. One. Because that was the first time I saw how a single day could determine whether someone would rise financially or remain in struggle for months. It was given to me during a midnight gathering, not physical, spiritual, a place where instructions were not spoken loudly, but imprinted into you. I remember it clearly. I was shown a list, not on paper, but like something projected into my awareness. Names, locations, and beside each name, a specific day. That was the day we were allowed access. At first, I didn't understand. I asked, why not attack them every day? And the answer I received still disturbs me till today. They said, because access is not given every day. That was when I realized something dangerous. There are days when people are more spiritually exposed than they realize, not because God abandoned them, but because they themselves unknowingly step out of alignment. And on that day, their covering weakens, their discernment drops, their decisions shift, and that is when we step in. The first person I was assigned to was a businessman, very hardworking, disciplined, respected. If you saw him physically, you would never think he had any spiritual vulnerability. But he had one weakness, just one, and it was connected to a particular day. Every week, without fail, that was his pattern, that was his opening, and that was how we entered. What we did to him did not destroy him immediately. No, that is not how it works. We adjusted things slowly, small delays, minor losses, unexpected expenses, until one day he looked at his life and couldn't explain. He couldn't explain why nothing was working anymore. And the painful truth, he never knew that everything started on a day he took lightly. If you are still listening, then it means something in your spirit already knows this is not ordinary. Because what I'm about to say next is where many people lose their finances without ever realizing when it started. That businessman I mentioned, we didn't attack his income directly. No, that would have been too obvious. Instead, we targeted his flow. The instruction I received was simple. Do not stop what comes in. Just make sure it does not stay. And that was exactly what we did. Every time money entered his life, something would rise almost immediately to take it out. Unexpected repairs, urgent family needs, strange emergencies, unplanned expenses. At first, it looked normal. Even he said things like, it's just one of those weeks, but it was not 1 week. It became 2, then 3, then months. And here is where the mystery deepens. All these things were activated on a particular day. On that day, his spiritual sensitivity dropped. Not completely, just enough. Enough for suggestion to enter. Enough for decisions to shift. Enough for him to say yes to things he should have delayed. That is how it works. We didn't force him, we influenced timing. After the flow was destabilized, I was given a second instruction. Delay what should elevate him. This one was more technical because now we were dealing with opportunities. Calls that should come early would come late. Emails that should be seen immediately would be ignored. Meetings would be rescheduled. Connections would almost happen, but never fully align. And again, all these disruptions were anchored to that same day. That was when I understood something powerful. The enemy does not always fight your effort, he fights your timing. Because if your timing is corrupted, even your hard work will look like failure. This was where things became dangerous. Decision alteration. Because now, we were no longer just affecting events, we were influencing choices. On that specific day, we would study his emotional state. If he felt tired, we amplified it. If he felt pressured, we increased it. If he felt urgency, we rushed him. And under that pressure, he began to make decisions like investing wrongly, trusting the wrong people, spending without discernment, postponing important actions. And every wrong decision created a ripple effect. At this point, I started feeling uneasy because I could see clearly this man was not lazy. He was not careless. He was simply unaware, and that troubled me because it means many people were not failing because they were weak, but because they were targeted through patterns. Then came the instruction that opened my eyes fully. They said, "Mark the day, that is his gate." That was when it was revealed to me that every person we monitored had a specific day of vulnerability, not random, not guesswork, a consistent day they handled lightly. That was the day access was easiest. For this man, that day was not a day of stress. It was actually a day he loved, a day he relaxed, a day he reduced spiritual alertness, a day he felt, "I deserve this break." And that was exactly why it worked, because he opened the door himself. Now we moved into the final phase. Not quick attacks, no. Sustained draining. Small financial leaks. Subscriptions he forgot about. Minor losses he ignored. Deals that looked good but gave no profit. Money spent without accountability. Nothing dramatic but consistent. And over time, his financial strength weakened. But something happened that disrupted everything. One week, on that same day, he did something different, something small but dangerous to our system. He became intentional. That was when I saw resistance for the first time. Not shouting, not long prayers, just awareness, alignment, and timing. And what shocked me was this. The moment he changed how he handled that day, everything we had built over months started collapsing. Opportunities returned, money stabilized, decisions became clear, and I was questioned for the first time. Because in our system, when a target begins to recover, it means one thing: they have discovered something. If you have followed this confession to this point, then you already understand something many people don't. That your life is not just influenced by what you do, but when you do it. Because what we targeted was not effort, it was timing. And that businessman, He didn't suddenly become spiritual overnight, no. What he discovered was something simple, but dangerous to the system we operated. Let me not delay it anymore. The day we exploited the most, the day many believers take lightly, the day that gave us the highest access was Sunday. Yes, Sunday. Not because Sunday is evil, no. In fact, it is supposed to be one of the most powerful days spiritually. But that is exactly why it is targeted. Because when something is meant to strengthen you, when something is meant to strengthen you, and you handle it carelessly, it becomes an opening. Let me explain what we observed. How people unknowingly open the door. Many believers wake up late on Sunday, rush to service without preparation, engage physically but not spiritually, leave church and disconnect immediately, spend the rest of the day casually. Some even say, I have gone to church, that's enough. But in the realm where I operated, Sunday was not a day to relax spiritually. It was a day to watch patterns. Because after church, many people drop their guard, and that is when access becomes easy. The system we used, our operations were structured like this. 1. Observation phase morning. We monitor spiritual engagement. 2. Weakness detection. We identified carelessness, distraction, or emotional openings. 3. Influence phase. We introduce subtle suggestion. Spend this, ignore that, delay this decision, respond emotionally. 4. Activation phase. Night. Seeds planted earlier begin to manifest. And by Monday, the person is already dealing with consequences without knowing it started on Sunday. Why finances were affected most? Finances are deeply connected to decisions, discipline, timing, spiritual alignment. So when Sunday was compromised, the entire week became vulnerable. Because Sunday is not just the end of a week, it is the foundation of the next one. The moment that changed me was not fear, it was realization. I began to see we were not destroying ignorant people. We were taking advantage of spiritual negligence. And that disturbed me because I remembered there were people praying, fasting, trusting God, but still struggling financially. Not because God failed them, but because they were losing battles. They didn't even know that was happening. There was one last assignment I was given. A woman, very prayerful, disciplined, different from others. We were told her Sunday must be broken. But this woman did something I had never seen before. Her Sunday was not casual. She prepared for it. Before service, she aligned herself spiritually. During service, she was intentional. After service, she remained spiritually sensitive. She didn't just attend church, she carried the atmosphere with her, and that changed everything. Every attempt we made failed. Suggestion didn't enter. Distractions didn't stick. Opportunities around her didn't collapse. It was like the day we used as an entry point became sealed. That was when I understood. The problem was never the day, it was how people handled the day. Sunday is supposed to be a day of alignment, a day of spiritual reinforcement, a day of divine positioning. But when it becomes casual, it becomes vulnerable. If you are listening to me now, this is what you must understand. You don't need to fear the day, you need to redeem it. Start doing this. Prepare for Sunday before it comes. Don't enter it casually. Engage spiritually, not just physically. Be present in spirit, not just body. Guard your decisions after service. Be mindful of what you agree to. Avoid careless spending on that day. Many financial leaks begin there. Stay spiritually sensitive into the evening. Don't disconnect immediately. Because what you do on Sunday can either position you for favor or expose you to unnecessary struggle. I walked away from that life because I realized something painful. We were not as powerful as people thought. We were simply taking advantage of what people ignored. And now that you know this, you are no longer ignorant. The question is, what will you do differently this Sunday? If this message has opened your eyes, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, because someone else might be struggling financially without knowing why. And this might be the answer they have been praying for.